Hello, my name is Scott Sherman, and I'm with Westchester University's Office of Training and Organizational Development. I want to welcome you to today's program, How to Build, Lead, and Perform in a High-Performance Team. Today, this is a two-part series. The first part, I'm going to cover those key factors that you need in order to form, lead, and participate in teams. And then more important, I'm going to focus on some of the ways to maximize and evaluate the team's performance. In part two, I'm going to focus in on those ways to reduce team management challenges that we often face that prevent us from being as effective as we can be. Today's content has been adapted from Harvard Business Essentials, Creating Teams with an Edge. I've also taken information published from team and leadership gurus Pat Lencioni and John Maxwell, and I'm also borrowing from my 26+ years of work and community experience where I've served on and led numerous work, civic, religious, and philanthropic teams. So let's start out by understanding what is the concept of a team. I've worked with lots of departments and lots of groups where they believe that they're a team. But I want you to question whether the groups that you're working with are in fact a team. So a team is a group of people with a full set of complementary skills that are brought together to complete a task, a job, or a project. Now, when we look at those team members operate with a high degree of interdependence, whether it's in the activities that they're performing or the way that they communicate with each other. They have to share the authority and responsibility for self-management. So they're not only taking accountability for themselves, but also for each other. And they're also accountable for the collective performance. And then lastly, and most important, they work toward a common goal and often see shared rewards, even if those shared rewards are simply recognition. When we look at teams, we think of the ongoing work of units, departments, or committees, or we might also look at the project or activity work of task forces. So when you're considering the whole concept of a team, and do you really need a team, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. What is your objective? What do the team players bring to the table? What is the relationship of the team players to the work? And if you answer that when those goals represent a unique challenge, and when you have no individual who has the right combination of knowledge, expertise, and perspective to do the job, and when those individuals must work together with a high degree of connectivity, especially when it's critical to get buy-in, that's the perfect time for a team. So let's take a look at what are the essentials for an effective team. If you actually have the luxury of building a team, it's absolutely key during that critical launch phase to make sure you set that team up right. So whether you're the leader or whether you're a participant, everyone must know what is the team purpose and the goals, what are the expected activities, what are the intended results. At this point, we may not know how we're going to get there, but we at least know the direction that we're heading in. What are the available resources that we have at our disposal? What are the restraints that we're aware of at this time that might hinder our performance and our success? What are the necessary skills and qualities of each of the members of the team? This is absolutely key. People need to understand and know why they're there. Why are they sitting at the table? Who are those possible team members? Because often people are brought together from across the enterprise, and you may not know who those people are. It's critical that you know that. The extent to the decision-making authority. Is this a recommending body, or do they have the final say? And then lastly, and for many most important, how often is this team going to meet? How much time is it going to take up? And what's the duration? Is this something that's going to meet for a couple of times and be finished as a task force is? Or is it going to be something that's going to be more ongoing? So, as we're considering forming our team, the goal is to get the right people in the right places. That helps to ensure the progression of the team. More important, we want to get the right people in the right places. So it's not only the individual, but bringing everybody together. That has a multiplication effect. The team is more than just a collection of the people when there's a strong sense of that mutual commitment that creates the synergy, and then what it does is it generates performance that is greater than the performance of each of the individual members. What we want to be careful of is that we don't have the wrong person in the wrong place, the wrong person in the right place, or the right person in the wrong place, because what that often does is it leads to regression, it leads to frustration, it leads to confusion, and the team cannot perform all that it could otherwise. So, when we're thinking about forming our teams, I want you to think about 3 different characteristics in the people you want to bring to your team. What I call the 4 C's: the contributors, the collaborators, the communicators, and the challengers. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a diverse team. We want to make sure it's well-rounded and we have all of these contributions to help the team to be most effective. The first one is the contributors. They are those task-oriented members who enjoy providing the team with good technical information and data. They push the team to higher standards. And although they're dependable, they sometimes get really bogged down in the details and miss that bigger picture that we sometimes see in others. They're responsible, they're reliable, they're proficient, and they're very organized. Let's go to the next group, which are the collaborators. Those are the ones who are more goal-directed, and they see the vision, they see the mission, they see the goal of the team. They tend to be more flexible and open to new ideas. They're willing to pitch and work outside of their defined roles, and they're also willing to share the limelight with others. They tend to be big people thinkers, and they sometimes fail to give enough attention to the basic tasks or consider individual needs. But having said that, they are forward-thinking, they're goal-directed, they're accommodating, they're flexible, and also important to it, the success of a creative team is they're imaginative. The next group are the communicators. They're process-oriented people who are effective listeners and facilitators that don't mind getting involved. They don't mind conflict resolution. They're consensus builders, and they're free to give the feedback and help to build that informal, relaxed climate. They're people persons, and they sometimes can see a process as an end to itself. They may not want to confront other members of the team, and they may not want to give enough emphasis to making progress toward the team goals. But they are supportive, they are considerate, they're relaxed, they're enthusiastic, and they tend to be tactful in that group setting. And then lastly, we have the challengers. Those are the adventurers. Those are the ones who want to question the goals and the methods and the ethics of the team. They're willing to disagree with the leader and the higher authorities and encourage the team to take well-conceived risks. Most people appreciate the value of their candor and their openness, but sometimes they're not known for that pushing back on an issue, or they become self-righteous and try to push the team too far. They're honest, they're outspoken, they're principled, ethical, and they're a critical member of the team. So let's now look at understanding the roles of the team. We're going to look at the sponsor, the team leader, and the team members. So the last thing you want to hear from team members is, why am I here? So let's focus on what each of those members needs to know to do the individual and teamwork to ensure success. So from the team sponsor's perspective, they need to ensure that they have top management support for the team's creation, their existence and continued existence, their decisions, and their directions. They need to be alert at any changes in the organization's objectives that may affect the team's charge. If the team is going in a particular direction, there's a major change, they need to be touched into that pulse to make sure that they can adapt and refocus the team. And also, they need to make sure that they can communicate the team's progress to the rest of the organization, to the rest of the division, and to leadership. So when we're talking about forming a team, one of the challenges we often have is that while leaders initially want to be part of the team, they sometimes suffer from leadership phobia, which is an exaggerated or usually illogical fear of assuming that leadership role. Some of the symptoms are that those decisions aren't made when they need to be made, problems will pile up, or those so-called leaders impede the rest of the team's performance. So here are some of the things that team leaders can do to help ensure the success. First, they need to regularly communicate the progress on the problems to the sponsor. They need to periodically assess the team progress, the outlook of the members, and how each member views their contributions to the team. They also need to be accessible and ask for input. They need to make sure that everyone's contributions are heard. Everybody's voice is heard. They need to take turns and make sure that others have an opportunity to give different people the chance to facilitate and sometimes even lead the meetings. They need to talk last in discussions. We know that leaders are often looked toward for the answers. But you want to make sure that you have other people's voices heard, because once your voice is heard, we impede the chance that your opinion may be taken as fact. You also need to be clear whether, when you are expressing your opinions, whether they are your personal opinion, whether they're that of the organization, or whether they're that of the whole team. Also, as a team leader, you need to make sure that you do your share of the work. There are a lot of leaders that are great at delegating, but the members of the team look at them and say that they're not pulling their weight. You also need to resist that urge to act like a boss. It's very, very tempting to manage the group, but we're going to talk about there are other strategies to do that. And then the other thing that I see is very important is you have to serve as a fallibility model. You need to make sure that you can admit problems or mistakes to the team. Because once you open that up and legitimize it and say it's okay to be fallible in this process, that we're going to make mistakes, others will be more willing to do that as well, and it helps the team to get to the next level. Also, when it comes to the successes of the team, it's important that the leader shares that credit, and when there are problems, that often the leader needs to take the responsibility. And last and most important, the leader has to help build an environment of trust, honesty, and openness. So how do we do that? We do that through fairness, not equality, but fairness, integrity, making and keeping promises, appreciating the contributions of the team, and always providing the feedback that's necessary. Now, when we're talking about leading teams, what I'm encouraging you to do is not manage the team, which involves telling and directing and providing authority and focusing on the immediate needs, but to coach the team, to explore new possibilities, to help facilitate and get others' involvement, to look at yourself as a partner in this process, not look at the short-term needs, but really look at long-term improvements, and to be open to many different possible outcomes. Not soon as we find one, that's the one we're going to go with. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're complementing the team by making sure that we play to the strengths of everybody on that team and asking people the questions that they need to understand to make sure that they are the right ones to be contributing. So now let's focus on the team members. So when we look at the team members, they need to complete all the assignments that are assigned. Teams are really important, and often this is on top of other things that they're doing. So we want to look for those opportunities to be participatory and yet take calculated risks. Bring new ideas to the table, as well as listen to others' ideas. You also want to be flexible and be open to change, and also be the one who recommends that change. Sometimes it's going to be your voice that the group wants to listen to. I mentioned the leader being the one who needs to build that environment of trust, honesty, and openness, but the team members can also do that by being respectful in their communication when they want to communicate their dissatisfaction or their concerns with the leaders or the other members of the team. They also want to give positive and constructive feedback and not be destructive to the efforts of the team. You also want to be able to, as a team member, to self-correct and evaluate constantly. You're always learning and growing as you do that. Also, you want to support the leader and other team members. You want to appreciate other people's parts of views and the diversity of the team style. We're bringing diversity to the team to make the team better. And then lastly, you want to help others when they need the help. Ask for the help when you need the help. So, we've talked about the individual roles. Now let's talk about the environment for a few moments. Don't underestimate the importance of the space. You want to make that space where that team is going to work match the goal of the team. If it's something where everybody's coming together to put together packets or to do something that is team-oriented, where you need a lot of table space, sure, you want a large table in the room. But when we're talking about brainstorming that requires a lot of creative thinking, you might want to think about non-traditional kinds of ways and places to meet. You might want to go for that more comfortable spot where people can share freely. You also want to make sure that you have plenty of drawing pads and pens at hand to encourage people to sketch out their ideas and get their ideas out on the table or on the board. And you also want to make sure that that space will allow participants to focus with little or no distractions or interruptions. The last thing we want to do in those particular cases is to have people getting interrupted with somebody knocking on the door saying you got to take a telephone call or their cell phone is ringing. You want to make sure that people can give you that attention for that specific amount of time. And you want to make sure that you time these activities to make sure that you have everybody's commitment for that given time. You don't want to elongate those meetings. A meeting that lasts more than an hour is not productive. Keep it tight, keep it short. So what are some other ways to maximize performance? Speaking about meetings, you don't want to meeting people to death. You want to bring them together to discuss the decisions that need to be made. Okay? And when you're talking about sharing information, send them emails to update them. There's no need to bring people together just to go around the room and share what people are doing. Remember, a team needs both fresh, inexperienced perspective as well as that expertise. Look for opportunities to change up the players on a project, on a task force, or on a committee. You also want to recognize that creativity thrives on playfulness. You want to create those appropriate times and opportunities for team members to stretch their right brain thinking. Get them thinking creatively. Come up with icebreakers or team activities that address that creativity or improve communication or simply getting them to know each other better. If you need help with those kinds of activities, the Office of Training and Organizational Development is one of your key resources to either facilitate that or to give you ideas. And also, and lastly, you have to know when it's time to disband a team. When a team is doing some work, it's absolutely key that you know when the group has finished its work. So at this point, we've talked about what are those factors for forming, leading, and participating in a team. And hopefully you've learned some ways to maximize and evaluate that team performance. We recognize that all of the things that we talked about, you may be doing many of those. But it's when you do all of these in concert that we're going to take the team to the next level. So what I want you to do as we end this part of today's program is to think about what are the things that you learned new today that you want to make sure that you start doing going forward. What are those things that you're already doing that are serving your group well that you want to continue doing, that you don't want to lose sight of? And lastly, what are some of the things that your team may be doing or you may be doing as an individual that may not be serving you well, that going forward you want to change? So having said that, I hope you found value in today's program, and here's to more productive and effective teams.